I'm Kate.
I'm Avon.
And I'm Sonia.
And today we're dishing with you from Morton's Steakhouse, which is located in Georgetown at 3251 Prospect Street Northwest.
Located only in Georgetown?
No, they're all over the place. However, the one we care about today is Georgetown, the Georgetown location, which is amazing. You can see all the wonderful pictures on the wall of all the wonderful people who've dined here, as well as us. Will be.
There's a spot right here. I know that they have a sign here, but I think that we're
going to work on
right
that.
Here.
Yeah,
we're going to be back there someday.
We're going to take that over, but amazing food.
And today, not only do we have amazing food, we have some people doing amazing work in and around the district. Talila Lewis is with us. She calls herself an advocate. She's an advocate for many things, but she's an advocate today on this show for the deaf community in DC. How did you start working with the deaf community?
I actually went to school with deaf children around 3rd grade and fell in love with the culture, the language, and kind of picked up the language, and it went from there.
Picked up the language, but picked up the language. I mean, how do you pick up? Did you take a class, or did you literally start asking how do you say this, how do you say that, and picked up
it's
the
a matter of
sign
like,
language?
okay, so you speak another language and we're in the same class, how do I communicate with you?
Right.
And so it was more of, I really want to communicate with this child who, I want to have fun, we want to go play recess, whatever it is you want to do, and I had to figure out a way to communicate with them and them with me. And so for me it was naturally easier to learn their language versus them learning mine.
Now, what about, this is a mistake that I have made, which is hearing impaired versus deaf. What is the appropriate term to use, and do they mean different things? Educate us on terminology.
Sure, yeah. It's a very good question. A lot of people, hearing people, like to say hearing impaired because you say visually impaired,
Sure.
and you say, impaired.
Right.
That's just the word. That's the term that means what we literally are trying to say. They're lacking in some sort
An impairment
of a facility, of
Right.
a hand, or whatever it might be. But a lot of deaf people take that as an insult because they see the hearing person calling them impaired, and they see them
inferior in some
it's
way.
more as it's an inferior thing as opposed to what we actually mean. None of us, I'm sure, say impaired to mean, oh, that disabled, that person can't hear, but that's kind of how they take
Sure.
it. And so fine, it's their disability, so we say.
Which it's weird because I still watch a lot of the, whether it's news or any other programming, you'll have closed caption for the hearing impaired brought to you by, and they still do that even until like yesterday.
I think it's more of a matter of shortened, because what the preferred term is deaf and hard of hearing. So that's like 4 words versus 1. So us being hearing, okay, we don't have a problem with hearing impaired, and it's shorter. So when you write it on the television, that looks a lot better than deaf and hard of hearing captions. So I think it's more simplicity measure than politically correct measure.
Now, there is a university here in the District of Columbia for deaf and hard of hearing. I mean, there must be a lot of people that come here to the District of Columbia that are learning and having wonderful full lives and doing great things here. And how are you involved with all of that?
Wow, that's a great question. Gallaudet is actually, this is a cultural hub for the deaf community here in Washington, D.C. Gallaudet is actually the only liberal arts college for the deaf in the world, not just in the nation. It's actually an international school, so a lot of the students come from all over the place. What I do here is I try to make sure that the deaf community has access to the legal system, has access to education. A stifling amount, a percentage of the deaf community, they're actually illiterate because they don't speak English, and their signs, people a lot of times think that sign language is English translated into, okay, let's finger spell everything, but it's actually signed words. So there's not a real translation from English to ASL.
Right.
And it's very hard for them to learn English not being able to hear, because that's how we learn to speak and read. Because we can hear, and for them it's very, very difficult. So I started an organization with the DC Public Library System that focuses on deaf literacy. I'm the director of a deaf camp for youth. We take multi-disabled children, so some of them have cerebral palsy and deafness, and deafness and partial blindness and things like that. And we really just let them have a great time during the summer, foster and encourage communication. We actually have hearing children there, because our goal is to foster acceptance and understanding of both cultures at an early age. And so I just love the camp, and it's quite an inspiration.
Is this your full-time job? What do you do what do you do to make money?
I'm actually a paralegal for the DC government. This is all the stuff that I do in my spare time, the little bit that I do have. Don't sleep. But it's really a passion of mine, and I really see a need in the community for more advocates, on behalf of the deaf community, and so that's what I do.
Why are you not signing right now as you're speaking?
Ooh, good question.
I'm holding my hands tightly together.
Well, it's hard when you're at a table.
Yeah.
But, I guess...
No, I usually, she says that, see, and now that you've mentioned it, thanks, Sonia. I sign when I talk to pretty much everybody, especially when I start talking about deaf anything. And so whenever Sonia sees me, we're always talking deaf something, and so I'm always signing at her, and she thinks it's a riot.
No, I think it's interesting, and I think it is a way of opening a conversation about the community. And I think there are so many people who, and it goes back to the whole the conversation within the community of, should you be able to read lips? Should you only speak through sign language? Should you be able to speak?
Yeah,
it's a whole
I've got
argument.
a question.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do when you're deaf and blind?
When you're deaf and blind, great question. You would be deaf and blind, and I would be signing my name to you right now, and you'd know what I was saying.
It's a tactile experience.
It's tactile. It's instead of being visual, it's all.
And you have no one in your family that is deaf or hard of hearing. This is from being around people in school. You must have been around a lot of people in your school.
There weren't that many. I'm a linguist. I love languages, so if I can pick one up, I'll pick it up. But this became more of a passion because there's such a great need in terms of access to a lot of things for me. But yeah, now I have a deaf cousin, but she's 3 years old. She's the cutest little thing. She's hard of hearing. And but before that, no. So that's as of the past 3 years. But yeah.
And forgive my ignorance, what's the difference between deaf versus hard of hearing?
It's really, they term themselves. So,
Okay.
If Sonia wants to be hard of hearing, she can be hard of hearing.
Sometimes I think Sonia's hard of hearing.
There you have it.
So those years of clubbing.
No,
It's they kind of self-determine. Some people prefer to be deaf, and some people prefer to be hard of hearing. And a lot of times, the large thing is that if they were born deaf, and then they're deaf with a big D. And if they kind of lost their hearing later on, then
I wish we had
I
more
didn't know
time
that
with
either.
you.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. That's wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry we have run out of time, but we've learned a lot.
Thank you. I'm glad.
And next time we see you, I hope that you'll be teaching us how to say some things
I know
with
one
our
thing.
hands.
Thank you, Talila.
You're welcome.
That's right. Thank you.
No
and
problem.
thank you for watching. We hope you come back next time. Don't miss us right here on the District Dish.